Listen, I've recently made the best purchase of my entire life. It wasn't much, it was like $37. Here it is though. It's a full-size Spider-Man costume for Halloween. Comes with a mask and everything. It's like the full-on, like the logo is the exact same from the Avengers movie, from like Far From Home even. $37. The best, most stretchiest costume I've ever owned. Now that I think about it, it is almost the only costume I've ever owned. Let's roll that intro. What's going on, guys? Benza here. Thank you so much for coming back. Today I wanted to take a look at fall and how us photographers absolutely love fall. It is the favorite season of ours because it's sweater weather. There's oranges, yellows, and reds all over the entire place. It's not the exact same if you live in Alberta. It's like you have basically a week of sweet spot and then you go straight into winter. Apparently our next snowfall is supposed to happen like next week. It's absolutely insane. But today is the day that we're going to edit some fall photos together because I think it's important to kind of understand how these colors could work together and how I would edit a photo when I look at fall. So let's jump in. And now, we dragged our pictures in, we're gonna hit import. Once we hit import, we have our 4 pictures there. I tend to shoot a lot of the same thing, so that's why I have like 4 of the exact same picture. But we're just gonna go and hit our tab that says develop. Once we're here, we see that this picture is a little bit underexposed and we see that there's not much contrast to it. But the way that I like to edit is I like to pull up my shadows all the way and I like to take down my highlights all the way. And the reason for that is because if you look up here, you can see more detail in the sky. You can see a little bit of vignetting, but it actually kind of looks cool to me. And you can see more detail in the shadows over here. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to raise the exposure a little bit. And when that happens, you will see that the picture goes absolutely flat. What we're going to do is we're just going to hit our crop. Because this is for Instagram, I'm going to hit the original, go down to the 4:5 aspect ratio. And then I'm going to start to align the bottom of the dock to one of those rulers. And in order to make this a symmetrical picture, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to place the middle of this dock, my subject, into the middle of the frame. If I want to get a little bit stylish, what I can do is I can pull it all the way down so that it's on the rule of thirds down here, and then we can see a little bit of sky over there. Then I press done. Now we have the composed shot, but we still have a bunch of just ugly looking details. In order to get rid of this washed out picture, I'm going to increase the contrast a little bit, or a lot. And as you can see, we already have such a big punch to this image. If I open up the before and after, we will see that we've retained all the color here, except we've blown up those shadows quite a significant amount. Now, I'm going to scroll down a little bit and I'm going to take away the vibrance of these colors. And there's a reason why I'm going to do that, but we're going to get to that later. I'm going to go to the clarity and I'm just going to increase that a little bit. And as well as the dehaze, I'm just going to add a little bit of more of that punch. And scroll down, and this is where your tone curve lives. So basically you have your darks, your blacks, your shadows, and then you have your lights and your highlights. What I like to do is I like to just pull down the darks just a little bit to add more of that dramaticness. Now I'm gonna pull up the lights just a tiny little bit. This is what's gonna create a so-called S-curve. It's also used in cinematography, but it's used in a more contrasty way. Now what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be scrolling down, and this is my favorite part of this entire process. We're gonna get to our color/HSL tab. This is where you can see every single color, the hue, the saturation, and the luminance for each of those colors. And this is how you can really manipulate the look that you really want. Now, because we're working with a fall and a strong contrasty vibe, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our reds, oranges, and yellows into a much more priority spot. So what's gonna happen is, first I wanna focus on the yellows. I'm going to drag that hue a little bit over to the orange side, giving those a little bit of a more orange tint. Then I'm gonna bump up that saturation so that we can see those colors really pop. And then finally, luminance, it's basically the exposure of that set color. So I can make them deeper, I can make them a little bit more brighter. I think I like the brighter personally, but we can also change that later. Now, because we leaned our yellow a little bit towards the orange side, I'm gonna be paying attention to that orange so that it kind of complements each other. See, if I drag that all the way to the yellow, it basically doesn't really do much. But if I drag it to the other side, now we're starting to introduce some red into the image. Let's just pull it back a little bit so it's just very mild of a change. We're gonna bump up that saturation yet again, quite a significant amount, since this is going to start to evolve into our fall look. We're going to take down the luminance a little bit just to make those oranges a little bit more deeper. Now, we got to our reds. Our reds are very much stronger if I pull them to the red side. You can see it down in this little area over here. Or I can pull them to the other side and make it more of a unison orange look. I think I like to introduce more red, personally. I'm gonna bump up the saturation so you really see that red pop now. If I tone it back a little bit, you see that it disappears a little bit. Now once I go into the luminance tab, I can really make them deep, or I can make them pop. Now, this is my favorite part when we get to the greens. Because we just came out of summer, a lot of colors of the summer were greens and blues, right? Very vibrant, very summery, essentially. Now, what we're gonna do is I'm going to take this hue tab and I'm going to move it over to the yellow side. And the reason for that is because every single time that you go outside in fall, you see the trees getting more yellow and yellow every single day. My goal with this photo is to introduce that yellow element. Then we're going to see if the saturation adds to this picture or if we take it away. I think it adds a little bit, but we could be careful. Now with the luminance tab, I can either brighten them up or I can pull them down. I don't know, I kind of like it. I kind of like it there. Now Aqua, this is where we're starting to mess around with the water down here. So with Aqua, let's see if we add saturation, you really start to see that color pop. We can add some luminance so that we can clean up the water, or we can just kind of darken it down. See, the more drastic I go, you get to see the difference between the two. I like to see some details in that water, so I'm gonna keep it up. And with this slider, we can either choose to add it to our orangey kind of style, or we can go back towards the blue side. Although I kind of like it here. Moving down to the blue, we can move it either to one or the other. Doesn't really change much. You can add some saturation, and this is where you start to see a little bit of change in these areas. See, when I lessen the saturation, you see that blue really disappear. I think I'm gonna keep that a little bit down. Luminance, add a little bit of contrast to that bench, but doesn't really touch the water. Now this is where styling really comes in handy. So basically, when you look at cinematography, you see, usually, it's a very big Hollywood technique, it's the orange and teal look. And what that means is that in the highlights, there's an orange tint, and in the shadows, there is a teal tint. Reason for that is because orange and teal are complementary colors, and adding them to highlights and the shadows makes it really nice and contrasty. So we're gonna do the exact same thing here. We already have our hue kind of on that red orangey slide. I'm just gonna move it in a little bit. I'm gonna start to add some saturation to it. And immediately you start to see this bench over here has changed colors. It's a little bit of an orangey tinge. And it might look okay, it might not. However, you get to see that the sky up here also has a tinge, and I don't like that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move down to the shadows tab. I'm gonna move that over to the teal, and now I'm gonna start to add that saturation into the teal. And now all of our colors are a little bit wackish and off because we introduced so much teal. This is where this balance button comes in handy. This is where you can really prioritize which colors are gonna be the main priority. So I think I'm gonna add a little bit more of that highlight so that we can keep the blue water and we can keep those we can keep that blue water and we can keep that shadow, except this time we're going to do a little bit more. The whole picture, especially in the sky up here, just seems to be a little warm. So I'm going to try to see what it looks like if I just cool it down a little bit, or if I warm it up. Now immediately I get to see a big change. This is a really fall vibe, except this bench really looks orangey. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just dial it back a tiny little bit. We can also do, so you can scroll back down there and you can just reduce the saturation of that orange. Boom. Now we have the sky, kind of is a neutral color. We have the very blue waters, which is awesome. We have our main subject, which is our bench, and we have all these different planets? We have all these different plants that kind of complement two colors. But I think we can still add a little bit more. I'm gonna add a little bit of noise reduction just because it was a really weird situation that I shot in. So I want to reserve that a little bit. As I scroll down, I can either add a little bit of vignetting to make it more dramatic, or I can pull it off. I don't think I'm gonna use it, so I'm just gonna put it back down to 0. Now we're gonna go back up a little bit and we're just gonna adjust some minor little details. We will raise these highlights and these lights. I want to give it a more brighter look, but not much that the bench disappears. I'm going to turn down these darks a little bit to add a little bit more mood to it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce a little bit more vibrance, just a tiny little bit, not much. Then I'm going to take the saturation, turn it down a little bit, just a very smidget there. Now boom, this is already a good looking photo to me, except what I think we could add is we can kind of play around with this up top area. There's a lot of room there, and I think we could add something. Maybe we'll add a little bit of a mask here. And we're going to have a cooler temperature in there. And just a tiny little bit of color here. Take the saturation away. And boom! Here we have our sky a little bit. We have our popping colors down at the bottom. We have reserved the water. We see some detail. And there you go. Alright guys. This is how I would edit this photo. I hope you guys enjoyed this little video. If you did, press the like and the share button. It means a lot. Leave a comment if you do something else that I might have not done. I would really like to see how you guys edit videos. I think it's awesome to see different creators have their own different styles. Also, if you haven't followed me on Instagram, make sure you do that. This is where this is going to be posted. Thank you guys so much for watching again. I hope to see you guys in the next one.